new disciplines at that time. Liang Sicheng's final choice of study was under Lin Huayin's influence. During her travels in Europe, she had fallen in love with architecture, which for her, by combining art and technology, was a perfect choice. The dream that she had nurtured since she was a young girl, however, encountered the harsh reality when she began to apply to go abroad. Her father consulted overseas study organizations about the possibility of enrolling his daughter to study architecture. The letter from Mr. Liard, then the head of the Department of Architecture, reads, "Our department admits no women students in consideration of the inconvenience that students have to work with alone on drawings late at night. But other departments in the School of Fine Arts will admit women students." In 1924, Liang and Lin decided to spend their first summer in the United States at Cornell University.
We don't know exactly why they came to Cornell, I guess. They took drawing and they took mathematics courses at Cornell, and these are the transcripts of the grades of the courses they took.
After the summer vacation, they went to Philadelphia, where Liang entered the Department of Architecture and Lin entered the Department of Fine Arts at the University of Pennsylvania. For the last 100 years, the core concept in architectural education focused on the academic neoclassical architecture as taught in Paris, then called the Beaux-Arts. It followed that various French master architects were invited to teach in the U.S. The architecture department of Penn enjoyed the teaching of Paul Kray, who at the time had a distinguished reputation in architectural circles in the U.S.
And so many young Chinese students who qualified were brought to the States to study. And the best place to study architecture was Penn because of Paul Kray.
The School of Architecture attracted a large number of students from China.
So here we are in our reading room, so we can take a look at some of the folders that are inside and discover some of the history that's here.
The archives in the architecture department show that the first Chinese student here was Zhu Bin from Guangdong, who enrolled in 1918. Chinese students achieve remarkable successes in modern Chinese architecture design and education. Between 1918 and 1927, when Liang Sicheng graduated, there were 25 Chinese students enrolled in the architecture department of the University of Pennsylvania.
And in this you see many Ds, and nowadays we think of a D as a very bad grade. But in this period, in the 1920s, D meant distinction. This was a top grade, this was an A, and showed real excellence in design.
The Parisian style of classical education was known for its strict training in basic skills. Students at that time had to endure repeated drawing exercises over and over to develop their skills.
That you don't try to get the finished color in one wash. You do it over 5 washes or 10 washes.
It's a tough life actually because the curriculum is very heavy. And actually I look at the registration form and the curriculum and all the course syllabi. It usually take them 35 to about 40 hours a week just for lecture and going to classes.
Every week, students in the architecture department would spend about 60 hours in classes and sketching exercises.
And this is just repeated practice and practice and practice. And you do that, and the professor come and do it again. They give you a very short time, maybe just about 3 hours, maybe 12 hours to finish something.
Liang wrote to his father complaining that he spent all of his time sketching and painting, and he worried that he might end up only as a craftsman.
你觉得自己天才不能负你的理想，又觉得这几年专做呆板功夫，生怕会变成画匠。你有这种感觉，便是你的学问在这时期内将发生进步的特征。我听见倒是喜欢极了。孟子说，能与人规矩，不能使人巧。凡学校所教与所学，总不外规矩方面的事，若巧，则要离了学校方能发现。我一生学问得力专在此一点，我盼望你们都能应用我这点精神。
We found a card stored in the archives revealing that Lin served as an instructor in design in the Department of Architecture, although she was registered in the School of Fine Arts.
At the time, they did not allow women to graduate with architecture degrees. So she graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts, even though she took almost all the classes that the architecture students did. So she really did study to be an architect.
Hui Yin's efforts to realize her dreams could not be stopped by the regulation. We discovered in her folder an interview with the Montana Gazette, in which she told the reporter, "When I go home to Peking, I will carry back to my country the message of a true meeting of East and West. We are distressed to see our native and peculiarly original art being exploited through the wild craze for keeping up with the world. There needs to be a movement to show to the people of China Western attainments in art, literature, music, drama, but not to take the place of our own, never. In China, a girl is worth only as much as her family stands for. Here, there is a spirit of democracy that I admired." As their American classmates remembered, most Chinese students were shy to speak or laugh out loud. The only exceptions were Benjamin Chen and Phyllis Lin. Chen had been Liang's classmate at Tsinghua, and even then he was an exceptionally active person. He had been president of the YMCA at the Tsinghua. Noted for his short stature, the Tsinghua's yearbook says, "He is short in stature in spite of his being president."
孩子们，我想许久没有写信给你们了。但是前几天寄去的相片，每张上都有一首词，也抵得过信了。今天接到大宝贝5月9日、小宝贝5月3日来信，很高兴。那2位不甚宝贝的信，也许明后天就到吧。
With his 4 children studying abroad, Liang Qichao continued to send letters across the Atlantic. The little baby mentioned at the end of each letter referred to Liang's youngest son, Liang Sili. While the elder siblings all went overseas, Sili stayed at home with Liang Qichao. Sili, the third academician among Liang's 9 children, later became a renowned expert on rocket control systems in China.
他做很多事情，不是因为我和他被逼着，或者是就是怎么去做，而是从兴趣出发。现在很多家长这个望子成才，又叫他干这干那个，他就毫无兴趣化，憋着那么干，实际上是不是一种很好的教育方法。
Liang Qichao, keen to learn about their overseas study and experiences, wrote his fatherly love into each of his letters to his children. Whenever his children faced career choices or emotional stresses, Liang would lose no time in sharing his thoughts and feelings with them, but always in the most gentle of ways.
关于思成学业，我有点意见。思成所学太专门了， 我愿意你趁毕业后1-2年，分出点光阴，多学些常识，选1-2样关于自己娱乐的学问，如音乐、文学、美术等。我怕你因所学太专门之故，把生活也弄成近于单调。太单调的生活容易厌倦，厌倦即为苦恼。
When Liang Sicheng and Lin Huiyin went abroad to study, Liang Chichao had reached the peak of his scholarship.
今天报纸上传出可怕的消息，我不忍告诉你，又不能不告诉你，你要12分镇定。
Only a year and a half after Liang and Lin went to the United States, Huiyin's father, Lin Changmin, became involved in the internal conflicts in the Manchuria army and was killed.
你要自己十分镇静，不可因刺激太剧，致伤自己的身体。会因遭此惨痛，唯一的伴侣，唯一的安慰，就只靠你。林叔的女儿，就是